Man, oh man, oh man. I am so happy. I am so happy. What do you think? Should I go Professor Messer style? No, I do not feel Professor Messer-esque. Sorry, this is going to buzz and bump and pomp while I adjust that, but that's just not my cup of mud. Hey, it is Thursday. You know, other than this, I can almost never come up with a reason to be excited about a Thursday. I don't think I ever got up and said, woohoo, it's Thursday. But today, you know, sorry, I'm watching concurrent viewers go up and down. It was really fun there for a second. I scared everybody off. I shouldn't have done that. Scott Jernigan is amongst the fray. Scott, so nice to see you. I know we're in communication all the time in other venues, but thank you for poking your head in here. Do not feel obligated to hang out for the entire shindig. Just left side audio. Sorry, I am not. One of the things I've learned about this setup is I've got a lot of work to do and learn and things like that, but I am never making changes during the show. I got burned by that on more than my fair share of times. So, wow. Well, okay, it is Thursday, and let's start this thing off right. Good evening. Welcome to ADRAMADA. Another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy. I am the aforementioned Dave Rush, and it is 7 p.m. Central Time in the Houston, Texas area where I presently reside and broadcast from. We get together once a week, every Thursday night at about this time for an hour or so to talk tech. And I sort of can't help myself. If you've known me from the past, you know I'm a Raspberry Pi person, and I will try to drag a Ras Pi into just about any tech. And I've started a theme that we're going to finish out tonight. And then we'll step away for a week or two or three from Raspis and do some other tech projects. And of course, we'll talk about anything. I have some interesting topics to bring up. If we want to get interactive on them and have some fun with that, then we will. Here comes everybody. Look at that. Whoa, you go wrong. You're so right. Man, this is old homecoming. I love this crowd. It grows as we go on, and for all the viewers that we get live, all handful of them, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that, the number multiplies fairly dramatically over the course of the week. So we get about 20 times viewership over the course of the week. It's still not big numbers. We got tiny little numbers, but we're getting there. I am in contact with a couple of industry leaders whom we have not interviewed yet. There we go. I feel the need to speak grammatically correct with Scott here. My heart palpitates, or palpates. See? For fear that I will use bad grammar. Nonetheless, we are in touch with people as upcoming guests. Some of them are going to be very exciting. All of them are going to be very exciting. I am not reaching into the bottom of the barrel to get who's left. I reach for the stars, and most of them are very happy to join us. We have a lot of really interesting things going on with industry leadership, with my employer. Got some neat things going on that I'm reaching out to do. It's fun. Well, let's see what is happening here. The nature of this show is technology and its immediate and near, maybe far term impact on us, right? So if you're thinking of any kind of technology that strikes your fancy, bring it up. We'll talk about it. I might not know anything about it, but we can research it and we can bring it up on a following thing. The technology of the day that everybody brings up in not just this venue, of course, but in every potential venue we can run across is AI, chat AI. And it's an interesting thing to look into because there's really two components going on there. Of course, there's a lot more, but the two big ones. One is the artificial intelligence algorithm itself, and we can tightly couple that to the resources that it has access to so that it can apply its intelligence, do research. And then there is the LLMs, the large language modules, which give us the ability to interact with this AI in a human communication fashion. Typing, of course, for the most part. Can't imagine it will be long before we're voicing in. That the speech to text stuff is very easy. We've been doing it for decades, certainly over a decade and a half. So there's really a lot of neat stuff going on out there, and I've got some more to mention about that. Just want to throw that out. We have an expert here. I have this weekly thing where I said we talk about everything from electric guitars to electric cars, and we have an electric car owner. And I haven't asked of late, Mr. J, how it's settling in. You've had it for years now. We're done with winter. Spring is here, so most of the cold weather influences, impacts on solar vehicles should be past you for 6-7 months, maybe longer. This is Texas. So curious what's going on with the Volt. Oh. And by the way, just because the title has digital alchemy in it, I'm happy with analog technology. And this being a personal show, it's not a corporate show. It's not owned or operated by anybody. And I don't have to report to it. The Leaf, I'm sorry, not the Volt, still rolls along, nodding at the poor folks pumping gas. This is why I miss so much of our face-to-face conversations. You are just so on top of it. Anyways, it's a personal show. I am beholden to no one except my missus. Did you say anything dirty tonight? No, I didn't, and I generally don't. I'm not boomy, am I? I'm watching my meters go flying into the red every now and again. So let's head, all right, let's see who's here, say hi, catch comments, things of that nature, and then move on. By the way, Scott, you may notice that Tullowit has the big blue wrench on this channel, and he got to use it last week for the first time. We had our first spammer last week. It was so exciting. I couldn't tell what that was. I don't know if that was just somebody who might have been, I don't know, relaxing with the herbs commonly found in Colorado, or if it didn't seem like the usual malicious stuff that we run across in some of the other forums we play in. Jot? Yes, Jot. That took me a minute to put together. So just left side audio. Sorry, I will work on that this week. There's always something here. Patricia Grace amongst the winners. Hi, Patricia. Thank you for 2 wonderful pieces of information. There's a total Discord server. A lot of everybody who's here live right now is a member of it. And I posted a question on it the other day. I love dark mode. I have it in most of my utilities and never thought about it for LinkedIn. And I was poking around some LinkedIn settings the other day and say, hey, good golly, look at that. There's a button that allows me to flip into dark mode. Let's test it. Wow. What a game changer. Maybe it's just because it's different, and but it just looks and therefore feels so much different. Maybe familiarity breeds contempt, and later on I'll say, okay, it's dark mode just like everything else. But for the moment, I am just enjoying the heck out of it. Well, that got me to thinking. I'm building an ADRAMADA website, and I imagine that somebody might like to flip it into or out of dark mode. Man, I am nothing if not consistent. Start a show, start hiccups. Anyway, so I put a post on the Discord server for anybody who has some expertise or thoughts or ideas on how to add a dark mode, light mode switch in there. And I specifically referenced Patricia because I know she does a fair bit of website programming, coding, and she responded almost instantly. What an amazing coincidence. I just found a guy who did a shindig on it, and here's the link. And so haven't started using his stuff yet. It's all been too busy for the last 2 days. But fun weekend project. I'm looking forward to that. So thank you, Patricia Grace. Patricia Grace also posted an article today. There's a blogger out there, tech blogger, all kinds of things and topics. And he's decided that this week, starting yesterday, he's going to devote his show to Linux gaming. He's not downloading games or anything like that, but he's offering his thoughts on it and asking people for their input and their pictures and things like that. So I kind of poke into it every 5 or 6 hours to see what's new and who's at it. I guess I should post that because Patricia can't. Do I have it convenient? Oh, yeah, I can probably get it this way. If it's quick and easy and painless, I think we did that in general. Zooming up through. I've been posting too much junk. Okay, there it is. Funny you should ask. Okay, that's that. That's not the... Oh, the Linux Gamer. That'd probably be in the Linux forum, huh? Yeah, there we go. The Lunduke Journal. Lunduke. And I think I got room to post that whole shiny link. So let's do... Put that there, click, paste. Look at that, only 142 characters. And thank you, Patricia. It's a lot of fun. Record attendance. Not quite, but it was briefly, but not everybody checked in. Maybe it was just the spammers watching and they said, Tullowit with the wrenches there. We won't be able to do our thing. Yeah, they're just enjoying Borderlands on Linux. I'm going to talk about that in this week's hacks. Abu Bakr Al-Haj, my friend, nice to see you. I just did a new kind of post for me on LinkedIn. I get these posts all the time from people that I follow and organizations that I follow. Hey, we're going live in an hour. And they post it generically or they post it to their follower base. And so I thought, I'll just try that on here. My guess is Abu Bakr Al-Haj, you probably got that LinkedIn message and said, hey, I'm following along with Dave. And LinkedIn gets a piece of that somehow because you got to click through their link and all that. But it's great living in the future. Scott and I have been saying that for a very, very long time. All right, back to this nonsense. We can shrink that. We don't need him. So, news of the week. Tech news of the week. Databricks. You can find them at databricks.com. They are a tech developer company. They got all kinds of neat technology that they're always working on and releasing. They released this, recently. Let's go with that. Dolly, D-O-L-L-Y. It is their LLM, their large language model. And it is, unlike ChatGPT, an open source LLM/AI. You may consider it a competitor to ChatGPT. It isn't as big. How we measure AI and these large language models is a fascinating topic, which we really should get into someday. The primary measurement tool is parameters, which you can think of as sites that contain information that the AI uses. So the ChatGPT parameter pile has about 175 million parameters in it, whereas Dolly has 6 million. Doesn't seem like much of a competitor then, right? Well, I have assiduously eschewed playing with ChatGPT, but when this came out, I said, all right, well, I'm going to have to start dipping my toe in the water and learn a little bit about it and be able to converse with it. And I followed some other tests that have been done. I'm not smart enough to do my own tests and say, this is a valid comparison. But in short, there was a answer, riddle me this, kind of ask me a question, answer me a question. And I didn't post it on here, but ask the two devices the same question, and they both generate answers. The Chat GPT was a much longer answer, and it was rambly, and it sidetracked a little bit, and it added unnecessary information, whereas Dolly was quick, clear, and concise. And it was a rocket travel oriented question. So it's interesting stuff. Take a look at that. I don't have the website for this, but if you, just go to databricks.com. There you go. I do have the website for that. And interesting alternative. You cannot help, if you play in the tech field, wonder about AI and its uses. And I, once again, am not smart enough to say, take the role of a futurist and here's where AI is going to lead us, where it could lead us, where it's not going to lead us. Especially when we talk about these big philosophical and scientific worlds. However, one did come to me in the last 24 hours or so that horrifies me. It will not be long. It will probably be blindingly fast, weeks or months at most, before things like, well, Siri's not a great example, but it's a good start. Things like IoT, there we go. Things like IoT, which are thoroughly accessible via your PC, via your smart devices, on which ChatGPT will be able to hook into ChatGPT's and the other AI's APIs, and or vice versa. And these AIs will, in very short term, have physical control access over devices. So it becomes paramount that we put together rules, Asimov's rules of robotics, perhaps, that have to be so much more fine-tuned than what he came up with originally, although he did foresee his own problems at some point where he said, not first do no harm, but never harm a human. I'm paraphrasing. And eventually the robots took that to say, protect humans, even protecting them from themselves. So we have to put very stringent controls on these kinds of intelligences. It's really fascinating. I know, dragging along here. I don't care about that anymore. It was interesting, but it was a filler. Upcoming. Okay, here's something. Techie interest. If you have an interest in administering Linux systems as a professional, but you don't want to go through the whole formal LPI training, LPIC 1 and LPIC 2, or Linux Plus, there is a class that starts every Monday and goes for about a month on administering Ubuntu systems. And I'm going to post this link for you here. It starts this Monday, first Monday of the month. It requires dedication. You're going to have to put in 1 to 2 hours a day, almost every day, for the month. But it's a very practical course. I know I have met the person who's running it. I'm going to take the course. I'm going to see what's there, what kind of meat is there. And they're very careful to say, look, this is not a certification prep course. This is a daily thing that you're going to need to do. It's got practical things. It's got some of the unusual things that you'll never mess with. The link that I just sent you shows 4 sublinks in there of things that you've got to do and prep. And one of them is the day 0 stuff. It's called day 0, which you want to do prior, several days prior, a week prior. It's about as much as you've got right now, before beginning the course. And one of those things that you have to do, could, would, should, is to create a cloud-based instance of Ubuntu. It must be exposed in and to the internet. You don't have to, but if you want to get the max value out of the course, you could, should, would. You could also make your own standalone Ubuntu installation, do it on a Raspberry Pi. I love that idea. And port forward to it. But pass. The port forwarding that I keep operational here in my home makes me nervous as a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. Man, I hate that cliche. I apologize for saying that. Take a look at it. Maybe join me there in class. We can compare notes. We can meet up in the Discord server. I'll certainly give reports on it every week on the show here. For those of you who are new, haven't been hanging around. Yeah, Heinlein didn't come up with the robot rules. The 3 rules of robotics were Asimov's. I think that all kind of came out from the Foundation series early on. Thank you, Steve is IT. Nice. Oh, wow. Truly old home. I bought 10 Linux shirts to rotate as my uniform for the show. This one hasn't made it this first time into rotation for this one. I ordered 4 more this week. They're not exactly Linux, but they're good techie shirts that are well related to the kinds of things we do on the show. So, grazie. If you haven't been following, this is just personal, but I'm having a ton of fun. I mentioned last week to our followers what a horrific dentophobe that I have been for 20 years. And as such, I have paid the price. And Scott, you are not a dentophobe, and you have not neglected your teeth, but I cannot help recall the year and a half of work that you had to go through for a dental problem you had. Well, I'm there, and I am rapidly getting over the hump. First of all, modern dentistry is so much better than it was when I became a dental phobe in my preteens. Horrible sadist of a dentist back then. I look forward to going to the dentist now, and I have gone so many times in the last 2 weeks, and I am no longer, for the first time in a decade and a half, afraid to smile and show some teeth. And it's getting better every time. We are doing so much work on you. Okay, you just did they did a teeth cleaning along the many other things that they're doing to me. And that took 2 hour-and-a-half sessions. And we're going to do another one in 3 months. And then we're going to do another one in 3 months. We're going to just beat your teeth to death and make you like the rest of the humans. And then we're going to start all the cosmetics and the surgeries. And so I went today, and I swear I look forward to going to the dentist. Not something you would have heard from me in the last 20 years. But so, as mentioned, I am nightly gaming on my Ubuntu system, Steam, playing Borderlands 2. Nobody else is playing with me. I have to play alone because you've got to play the same version. You can play cross-platform as long as both versions are identical on the different platforms, and they're not. The one that's on Steam is a unicorn, so I'm playing solo. If anybody wants to get Steam, that's free, right? Set up Steam on your Linux system and download Borderlands 2, install it, and we can play together. It's just a hoot and a holler. I'm having a really good time. I've got contractors in this week. I have stairs. I have wooden stairs all the way. They're built. Now they're getting painted and stained next. They did more ceiling work yesterday. That's almost done. When the stairs are painted and stained and the ceiling work is done, possibly tomorrow for both of those things, the only thing left is carpet. And then all of my destruction is repaired from November, a year and a half ago, the attic flood. And the last of the personal junk, attorneys. I'm talking to people who are listening right now who think I'm just a dabbler with attorneys, and they're right. But this whole estate nonsense, it's almost all done, but there's always that one more thing. And yesterday there was a minor crisis, and I responded, okay, do this and do this and do this and take that and drink this, and the world's a happy place. And then the response that I sent wasn't received by the attorney last night. Now, I was sent to 5 people on the list, and they all got it, but the lead attorney didn't. And she called me today in a hyperplastic panic. Yeah, I did you email yesterday. What do you? Lady, I responded to you. Here's what I said. I'll resend it for you. Oh, well, none of that matters anymore because now it's worse. You got to do this. There went an hour and a half of my life after work today, just while I was trying to prep for this. So glad when this estate nonsense is done. All right, let's see who's here, and then we're going to talk project. Oh, gosh, it's a fun project tonight. Reading messages here. Patricia Grace. Industry peeps are cool, but I have a friend who's a pen tester, works remote, and I could ask him if he's willing to come on. Yes. A solid and resounding yes. Let's just get as much interesting stuff as we can. PC, non-PC, don't care. Yeah, hook us up or ask him and be the middle person. Come on with him. It'll be fun. And we will be having in fairly short order, an amazing and wonderful, fantastic guest that you guys have been asking for a long time, over a year. You know who it is. Just look up and down the feed. The leaf is still rolling along, nodding at those poor pumpers. Smug much. I use dark mode too. I'm looking at dark mode here in my Brave browser, and therefore just about everything is dark. Or in YouTube, that's what it is. Tolowit, the church network I'm adminning is giving me stress. We talked about this personally. They refuse to pass stuff through me, so they let random people come in and plug stuff in, then let them look around in the software. Oh. You know, if you're going to be a volunteer, especially at the level you are, you've got to be the head of IT. And I will write a letter to your pastor and to your church council and tell them this is how it works. Funny thing is that since it's a managed switch, the ports are not in use, are disabled. Go ahead, plug into that one. I dare you. You know, there's something I never looked at. I've got lots of managed switch around here and I never thought about this. I keep them all enabled all the time. I wonder if you disable a port, if link lights still show up. You know, if they show that traffic is trying to come in and they're doing blinking. There's my project for tomorrow lunch. And then they complain it doesn't work. You have to buy a new switch. These ports have never worked. I don't know why. Super scrolled. Yay. We've got enough messages to super scroll. Abu Bakr. Oh, man. I love your name. I love to pronounce Abu Bakr al-Hajj. And I love listening to my former boss butcher your name. I'm so sorry when he does that. He just, you know, love the guy to death, but he can butcher a name like nobody's business. And then sometimes he gets real conscientious and stares real hard. We had some poor schlub on yesterday whose name was Antoids, Antoids, and he refused to call him Antoids. He did it once or twice, but I just got to call you Altoids, man. So, who knows where that was from? It's probably some very legitimate name. Alliteration much. That's me. I can't believe Steve is IT is here. Thank you so very much. So we have much to talk about. Steve is IT. Yes, it is Asimov. You are new. You should get an award. Is the plural of Linux Linux? Is it Linux? Works for me. I knew I could count on Scott. And why not everybody else coming in, chipping in with what your plurality for Linux is? Linux is EEII. Borderlands is a great series. 2 is my favorite, but pre-sequel, I have the pre-sequel. I just haven't played it yet. I'm terrible. I have one game on my phone. It's all two. There's 2. I've never gotten around to the second one. I just play the one to death. I'm really good at it. Same thing with Borderlands. I got hooked on Borderlands years ago from some of my coworkers at Total Sem, and That's it. I play Borderlands. That's almost everything. I do play around with Doom still, and I play with my RetroPie. Write the letter. Link lights do not show on the ubiquity switch if disabled. Useful. Thank you, sir. My pleasure, Alva Bacher. Hey, well, it's about the half hour here. And so let's talk about today's project. Folks, if you're not interested in Linux or VNCing, consider yourself checked out. There's going to be... We're not doing a deep dive. I hope to make this interesting for people who aren't. But if you are just really no interest in Linux, I'll see you Thursday. Yeah, I got a really fun show coming up next week. So I want to talk about installing a VNC server. I'm going to use terms, and I will explain them as we go, on Parrot OS running on a Raspberry Pi using the Mate desktop environment. Wow, what a mouthful if you're not into this stuff every day. So let's start with the first phrase here. Not in order, desktop environment, or DE. The desktop environment, I mentioned this last week, is the graphical user interface that you use to manage the operating system and to use the operating system to manage what you do. It launches your applications. It lets you browse and manage the file system. So Windows has a singular desktop environment. It looks the same all the time. It's not interchangeable. It's not much modifiable. There's a little bit of mod to it. Same thing for Macs. But Linux has dozens and dozens and dozens of desktop environments. And when you go to install some distro of Linux, it will by default, if you're using a desktop version, have selected and installed some desktop environment, and you can change it. So how the docks work and where they're located and different launchers and different. I'm not going to get into all that comparison today, but there is a huge interchangeable variety of desktop environments. I got a show all planned to do that. We're going to swap out 2 or 3 times in the course of a show a desktop environment. A common one, a popular one, but certainly not the most common desktop environment is Mate, spelled M-A-T-E, named after the yerba leaf tea of South America. Big, strong caffeine. They throw a lot of other cool spices and herbs in there and make a heavily caffeinated tea. And I don't know why they named it after the mate tea, but there it is. Parrot OS and Raspberry Pis. Now, if you know me and you know this show, we've been playing with Raspberry Pis for years on here. I've been playing with it since it came out almost on day one. Scott was with me. I walked into his office and said, hey, did you hear about this new little deck of card size computer? It runs Linux. And we compared notes. We looked at the articles and I ordered it that day. Of course, it was brand new and they were all out of stock, but it didn't take but a couple of weeks for it to come in. And I have been playing with them ever since. And some of you know my proclivities, and as you look around here all through the house, there's about 60. Again, I've built my numbers back up. They're not all running, but there's a lot of them running here in the office. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 here. Anyway, so little tiny credit card size computer runs Linux. Here's one. And it runs other operating systems. It's in a case, you can't see it, but you get the idea on the size. Do I want me to stand alone out of the box? Nah. Good planning, Rush. All right, so we got the Mate desktop environment. We got desktop environments. Parrot. Parrot is a Linux distro. It is a strong competitor to Kali Linux. Does some things Kali doesn't. Kali does some things that it does. But its real magic is the fact that it's available as a 2-forked product. One, you don't have to use it in Kali pen testing mode. It's just a super secure Linux desktop environment. So if you want to have your browsers all built in, only 13. It's a great operating system. But its big draw is the other thing. It has all these pen testing tools built into it. And in addition, that one also includes the secure desktop world. So it's a great daily driver, especially if you're concerned about daily security, and a great pen testing tool. And it runs on Raspberry Pi. So we installed it last week, did a quick tour of it. And when you install it on Raspberry Pi, the default desktop environment is Mate. Now, here's what I want to boil all that buildup down to. Parrot OS. Yeah, officially its name, Scott, is Parrot Security OS, or Parrot Sec. Parrotsec.org is their website. Here's the deal. VNC, the last term we haven't defined, stands for Virtual Network Computing. And it has very little meaning to what it is or does. Virtual network computing is the Linux version of Microsoft's RDP, Remote Desktop Protocol. It allows you to use the screen and keyboard and mouse on this host computer and take over the screen, keyboard, and mouse of that computer or those computers. And so VNC is a long-standing old protocol available for pretty much every Linux distro that I'm aware of. And as a standard, you can use standardized Linux clients, sorry, not Linux clients, VNC clients, to access a VNC server that's running on a distro. So here's the trick. The VNC server has to be able to take whatever desktop environment you have and translate it or work with it so that it's appropriately visible on the VNC client. And with all these different desktops available, they don't all work perfectly. You have to customize them. And that's what today's show is all about. Installing the server, installing any necessary software to customize the DE that you've got, and likewise to adjust a configuration file, just a single configuration file. The two big operating systems that default to Mate as far as their installation goes is Parrot OS, Parrot Security OS, and Linux Mint. A lot of people like Linux Mint because it's very Windows-like. It's very easy to convert from a Windows environment to the Mate environment on Mint. For me, it's got one problem, and that is it has the Macintosh 3 dots in the upper left-hand corner of Windows instead of the X and the shrink and the maximizer on the right-hand side like Microsoft Windows and like most other Linux distro Windows. All right, what do you need hardware-wise? Well, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi, and you're going to need an operating system that's Mate. So we're using Parrot Security. It's already installed. I'm not going to do any of that. At your option, a keyboard, a monitor, and an HDMI cable to your monitor, a mouse. Internet connection, because we got to download some stuff. The software that you need will all be downloaded as part of the installation procedure. And you should know if you're using Parrot Security OS on Raspberry Pi, the default account name is Pi, lowercase, P-I, and the default password is Parrot, P-A-R-R-O-T, all lowercase. All right, did all that. So I started planning this thing when I found Parrot OS. I said to myself, I want to demonstrate Parrot OS to everybody, and that means I'm either going to have to direct feed from the Parrot OS into the broadcast software that I'm using, OBS Studio 64, or I'm going to have to set up a VNC connection to it, and that was the route I chose to take. A project like that works in one of three ways. It's a piece of cake. You follow this tutorial, you do this, and it works. Not this time. The other one is massive amounts of research and trial and error that takes hours, days, weeks, or months. And after all of those hours, days, weeks, and months, you realize it's not going to happen. You're missing something. There's something you can't do. There's an incompatibility, whatever, and you just got to give it up. Well, we know that that didn't happen because I was able to do the show last week and do the demo. So the third output is same as second, hours, days, weeks of trial and error. And on the very last attempt, when you are ready to give up and sound, it's this or I'm done. I got no other ideas after this. And it works. And that's what happened. It's exactly what it was for me. And I'm pleased to report that that research and effort only took a few hours. And I got to tell you that I did in the few hours at least 100 and trial and error cycles. And I really was ready to give it up. I said, here's this one last thing. I'm just going to look and see if the VNC client connects. And if it does, wow, we got headway and we can do something. But it's not going to. It's an exercise in futility. Click, poof, there it was. Shock to the system. And so once I got it working, I was able to look into what I did and understand it a little better and be able to do some better research so that we could do this. Now, it's not going to take us hours, days, and weeks to do this. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to do everything to get this configured. That's why I wasn't worried about starting too late. So there's a lot of VNC servers out there. One of the most popular ones is called Tight VNC. So that was the one I decided to work with. Those are the other alternatives. I could have tried some of the other VNC servers. Ugh. So I worked so hard in that VNC server. So let me set up a visual connection with you. Putty, come here, you. Oh, I spent a lot of time today learning how to use my OBS software with shortcuts so I don't have to do lots of clicking and dragging. So I'm already established a connection with my Parrot server. Name of the server, amazingly, is Parrot. There I am logged in as Pi. And all the setup is done from the command line. And I've already done some of this. I'll run through the exercise here just to show you what needs to be done. You'll be able to download this off my ADRAMADA.com server. But to install, come here, you. Oops, you can't type in there. You got to go to the real putty. There it is. So to install the Tight VNC server in this particular distro, it's sudo apt install. Yeah, move your notes down there. Tight VNC. And because this is a secure operating system, he's going to prompt me for the password. So it's Parrot, P-A-R-R-O-T. And it's already installed here. So he's going to look it over and say, can't find it. Well, he can. It's a cryptic message that says, did I typo that? No, Tight VNC. Sudo apt install Tight VNC. It's already installed, but it's a real quick 20-second install. Now we're going to run it, except we have to unrun it because we got a problem. So to launch it, all you have to do is type VNC server. Now before I hit the enter key on there, that's going to take whatever configuration files you have and whatever support files you have and do its best. And it's going to fail. What it does, it'll look like he's doing its thing, but when you try to connect to it with a VNC client for another machine, all you're going to see is gray, a gray box, and there's no input, there's no communication. Now, I also want to show you that while we don't type in on this first example, :1, the system does that for you. And what happens is you can have multiple VNC sessions running and connect to them. And each of them has a unique identifier, a port, in fact, and the port is 590 and some number, or even 59 and 2 numbers. So this :1 makes this instance run on port 5901. If later I type in VNC server space :2, then there'll be another instance running that I would access on port 5902, and so on and so on and so on. 5910, 5911, 5919, you get the idea. Now the first time you run VNC server, and I've already run it the first time, it will stop. See, he added :1 here, and it says, give me a VNC server password. You got to type something in, and you've got to remember it. You'll need that to connect later. So I've run it one time already, and I didn't bother to clear the password. You can always change the password later. I'm not getting that deep into it. So he's trying to do his thing right now. He's running a session, but if I try to connect this thing with a VNC client, it's not going to work because the configuration files aren't running yet. So I want to get this thing out of memory. And to do that, all we got to do is say VNC server minus kill, and then which instance or instances that you want to kill. Okay, so that one's dead now. I got no VNC server running in this machine. In order to make a VNC server work with standard VNC clients on a Mate setup, we've got to do two things. One, we've got to install a couple of support files. Sudo apt or apt-get if you like, install, and these are already installed, xfce4 and xfce4-goodies. Don't ask me why. It's stuff that it needs. Sure you want to do this? Yeah, it's already in there. Leave me alone. But again, they are very, very quick installs, 10, 15 seconds tops. Okay, so now we've got the XFCE is another desktop environment. What's going to happen, it's going to create a virtualized desktop environment and use that. And I hear honking here. Oops, I blooped. No problem. Yeah, I didn't mute my servers. Where's I going with that? Okay, doesn't matter. Oh, so he's making a virtual environment using those XFCE environments, which is what the VNC server likes to work with natively. The next thing we have to do, in fact, the last thing we have to do, is to modify a configuration file. Now here I am in my home folder. If I take a look at this, there's nothing there. This VNC file edits, that's just some notes of mine. But I don't see what I'm supposed to see. So let me try this. Ah, there we go. There's a folder over here called .vnc. And that's where the config file that I want is. So we'll cd into .vnc. And when you go in here the first time, there is a file called xstartup. And you can see that it's all green. That means in PuTTY that it's got it's executable. Well, I took the original xstartup and I copied it as xstartup.backup. So let me show you what that looks like. Let's see, cat xstartup.backup. And here's what the default xstartup looks like. And what this file is, it's the configuration file for your GUI desktop. And nothing in here, almost nothing in here, works for us. So I copied the original xstartup file into this backup file, and then I started editing the real xstartup, the original one. So if I'm not going to cat it, I'm going to nano it. Nano xstartup. And there's a lot of junk in here. So in fact, there was so much I was kind of editing a little bit, take this out, add that, and in the end I said, you know what, I'm just going to blank the whole file, copy paste or add in some of the notes that I needed. And so again, you can get this as a download from my download area on the ADRAMADA.com server. But this is the file that you've got to create the content in xstartup in the .vnc folder of your home folder. Anything in here that I really want to talk about? Don't care about the unsets. You can see that we've got, we're going to use the user Mate session, and these -x's are commands that were included with the XFCE. That's going to help XFCE4 virtualize this environment so that the VNC server will use it. The external emulator sets a default window size with borders. So it's 80 characters across, 24 characters up and down lines, plus 10 border lines on either side. Gives it a nice little title here. All right. So you're going to create that file. We're done. Once that file is created and we've downloaded those two things, now we're ready to run the VNC server for real. So VNC server :1. Okay, it's up and running. I'm done with that. Let's go over here. And back to me for a second. So the next thing we need to do is install a VNC client on your workstation. And let me show you. We're going to use the Tiger VNC client. We like that one. He's industry standard. How am I doing? I got 10 minutes. I can do this in 5. It's an industry standard VNC client. And I'm going to show you 2. I got time to do that. We launch that, move past these notes. There. Let's go over here. Slide viewer. So this is SourceForge.net whack project whack Tiger VNC. And on this page is downloads of a variety of clients. That's safe to say. See how much I can zoom this thing and drag it around. There's a Mac client on here. There's Windows clients. There's Linux clients on there. So download an appropriate one. I have the Windows client downloaded on here. And this one's a really cool client. I like this client because you don't have to install it. Once you've downloaded it, you just double click it and it works. Magic. So let me take you over there. Oh, I'm not running VNC Viewer. Okay, that's all right. Sorry, got to open up a folder where it is. Okay, there it is. Now we'll launch VNC Viewer 64.1.12.0. You really want to run this because you downloaded it? Yes, I do. And there we go. So that's what happens when you run that thing that you just downloaded from Windows. And I've got the IP address of my machine running the VNC server in it, :5901. The one comes from the :1 that I launched when I ran the server. And it remembered last time the settings from when I did this. You can save settings. You can name them. You can do all kinds of things with this server. But now we connect. Oh, remember the first time I ran VNC server, you didn't get to see this, but it said, give me a VNC server password. Okay. Got to go over to this box to do that. Password, XXX password, whatever it is. And somebody I know used to say Wango Tango. There we go. I got a VNC connection to a Mate server. Pretty slick. Pretty simple. And we used that last week and did the full tour. Let me show you one other thing. I want to show you one other very interesting client. It's called Remote Ripple. Remote Ripple is another Tiger VNC downloadable client, but it's different. The one we just downloaded and used is a freebie. Ripple is a paid version. It's used by the pros to monitor as many VNC sessions as you want on as many different machines as you want in real time. They all pop up in a tiny little window. So where do we get that thing from? You get that from, they send you over to remoteripple.com. Did I make a slide for that? I did. Okay, there's the VNC, just in case it didn't come up. Okay, so here's remoteripple.com, then went to the download area. And here again, you can download it for Windows or for Apples or for iOS. Do this on your desktop. And this one is an installed program. So you download it, you install it, and then you run it. And I think, do I have it running? I do not. I rebooted the machine just before we started the show. So let me get it running. Remote. Not T-remote. Ripple. System was a little slow. I typed in T-remote accidentally. It brought up tremors. All right, now I've run this in the past, so it's going to remember what I've done in the past. You still coming up? Come on, baby. Heat them up. Let's try that again. Remote. Oh, I see what happened. It's running. Image remote ripple. Why am I not seeing that on here? All right, I have multiple sessions of it running now. System is getting slow. It's getting bogged down. Let's try this again. Control home. You're not going to see it. Well, nonetheless, it's a really simple little interface that just has a menu option that says new session. You click it and it says, all right, what's the IP address or the name of the server you want to establish a VNC connection to, and the port. There you go. And he calls over there, he prompts for the VNC password, and bam, you've got a window. Now you can do new session and connect to another session or connect to another server running a VNC server. And now you've got 2 simultaneous windows open, and 3 and 4 and 5 and dozens. What a shame. Sorry that didn't work out. So remoteripple.com. Easy stuff to remember. And folks, that's it. It's very easy, step by step, to install VNC server on a Mate machine. All you got to do is download and install the Tight VNC, sudo apt install Tight VNC. Download the 2 support files, XFCE4 and XFCE4-goodies, and then edit that X startup file in the .vnc folder of your home folder. Then install a standard VNC client anywhere you want, on some other Linux host, even on that same Linux host if you want. But that's a little circuitous, I think. Close you. And you're off and running. Now, we did a very similar exercise to this a long time ago, a year ago, with Kali. We had to mess with the same thing. We had to get the XFCE support files. We had to modify the X startup files. And the same is going to be true for a lot of different desktop environments. But that's the name of the game. All right, let me take a look at the final comments in here, and then we'll get ready to shut things down on time. Don't do that. That's... Gods love Linux for their blank screens. Amen. I prefer Argonians. I did a Herogen joke yesterday. How many? Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, we did Docker and Raspberry Pi. I'm going backward. There's a lot that happened here. I got to catch up. Sorry about this. If I have to run a minute or too long, I will. Pre-sequel's great because you can play as Handsome Jack. How cool. Or is his body double? All right. Sad. Games on Dave phone is Minecraft. I've never played Minecraft. The game on my phone is basically an Asteroids knockoff, which I love. On my phone, I play Pokemon. Scott and Mike were playing Ingress for a long time together. I see my machine is hiccuping, so it's a good time to get things wound up. Love Parrot OS, your go-to Kali substitute. Very nice. Abu Bakr, Scott Jernigan, how are you? You just now figured that he's here, huh? Oh, because it's all at the beginning of my project. That's why. Parrot OS. Definitely check that out. You got a Pi. Put it on your Pi. And it works fine, obviously, in a VM. Ton of Blue Team tools. Yes, it has more tools than Kali. Are they more selective? That's probably the big question, huh? And it makes your breath fresh. These days, I'm experimenting with Dockers on my PC. I find it really cool. I like Argonians. Oops, I blooped Dave. Yeah, I heard it was no big deal. That wasn't me the second time. It was Scott. Nice, that's all right. We're a friendly little group here. Yeah, Scott got it. Reflexively posting links as Dave mentioned them. Scott, I will make you a mod. Can I do that right now? Right? Oh, you click on this thing. Scott, you are add as a managing monitor. Scott, if you ever come back, you are a mod. You may post links. You might have to reconnect, but I did hit the button. Yeah, we didn't do a music reference today, but we had a very nice one, the Steve Miller one a couple of days ago on another thing. Did he say Dockers in the dock of the bay? So yes, you could. I did an exercise, Abu Bakr, about a year ago or so. Just look on the Total SEM YouTube channel archives, and you will see we did how to do Docker on Raspberry Pi, and I did 3 weeks ago how to run Docker containers on a Raspberry Pi using Apptainer. Not going to get into the whole thing. We're out of time, but cool stuff. There you go. Scott with the wrench. That looks so very normal. Hey, guys, it has been fun. Body count is increasing. I got an interesting show next week. Totally different technology. It's going to be the completion of a topic of our second week topic, maybe third. I don't know what it was. Might have been, I don't know, whenever it was. Do you know, I'll tease it, that a crossover gigabit cable is very different than the usual crossover cables that we have experimented with in the past. We've talked about that with IPv4 crossover cables in a show a couple of weeks ago, and you should be able to do this in your sleep. 1 to 3, 2 to 6. 1 to 3, 2 to 6. There's an IPv4 crossover cable. 568A on one side, 568B on the other side. It accomplishes exactly the same thing. And then we got the PoE influence. But it's very different with gigabit because all 8 wires are involved in moving gigabits of data. So I'm going to get into that next week. All right, so with that, we're going to close this thing down. It has been my pleasure. It's one of the most joyous shows that I've had in a very long time. I wish you all a great rest of the week. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy, and if at all possible, call or visit your parents. And never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, I bid you good night. I'll see you again next Thursday on ADRAMADA and at the AMAs on Monday and Wednesday next week. Until then, I am out of here. Hey, thanks everybody for coming. You guys are great.